Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Wales of Wall Street. VeChain video here for you guys today, VET. We'll have a bit of a discussion around VeThor as well. There's been quite good movements on VeChain in the charts. We'll dip down into that as well towards the end of this video. But yeah, this kind of one came around really just from some videos that I've been watching recently as I was doing a bit of research and what other channels were saying about certain tokens that we hold. And there's a bit of some skewed ones with perhaps not kind of like good collateral of like why they think this particular coin or blockchain in general or chain is not good enough. But I just wanted to sort of re-emphasize a few things as to why we became VeChain holders in the first place and kind of like the perception really of what's coming and why this is here to stay essentially. But before we do that, don't forget to obviously smash that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Welcome to the channel if you're new. Welcome back if you are part of us already. Multitude of different discussions and topics that we cover on the channel. So do let us know if there's any that we haven't picked up on yet or ones that you want us to cover. We should have a People's Crypto coming up next week, which is where we combine a few new ones or things that people want us to cover in one big spectrum. So we do a bit of down research on that. But yeah, for sure, there's a few more coming out in the next few days, so keep an eye out for that. Let's go straight into this one, guys. So one of the interesting things that happened recently with VeChain is the partnership with Amazon. Now, when I say recently, from my mindset, I do believe I started reading about this sort of thing a few years back. However, it's the last few days where it's kind of like been official, if you like, to an extent, where obviously Amazon has its like partnership kind of like portfolio, if you like, with all the partners that it's got around the world. And more recently, it has added VeChain Foundation to its partner portfolio, like from a visual representation. So I think for the last couple of years, maybe even 3 years now, I knew of VeChain working with Amazon in regards to the supply chain mechanism. We'll go into that in a bit more detail in a second. But this is really good to see our kind of like, I guess we call them Web 2 companies or the beginning of the World Wide Web bubble, right? Amazon taking on blockchain initiatives and definitely API solutions, technical solutions to help advance and be more efficient themselves. You know, you can always learn, you can always improve, and even a massive company like Amazon can do so the same also. So it's really good to see that. We always like to see that partnership conversation. It's not the ultimate reason why you should go and invest in things or for us to invest in them. It's just a conclusive partnership. It's a big company, a big organization, and working with one of the projects we've been following a long time. Now, I got into VeChain through a channel called Cheeky Crypto back in 2020. Obviously, when the pandemic was going on, I did lots of research. I was like, this is just before I kind of like, I could probably do my own channel. I'd quite enjoy this, and I love talking about it all day, every day. So it came about through that way, and as I learned more about certainly the area that they're interested in supply chain, processing, verification, validation, transparency, all this stuff, and especially the use of QR codes and API, etc. And it got me ticking because in my career, through a multitude of different industries, I've worked in distribution channels, I've worked in supply chain, AI, cybersecurity, loads of different ones, and more recently Web3 in gaming side of things. And all these things were sort of ticking in my mind, like, oh, okay, that's how they can do it. That's how they'll automate it. That's how it will be AI driven and data driven, etc. And we're not going to go into too much detail because I do cover this on a multitude of other videos, especially the IOTA ones, which is a fascinating project and technology. If you've ever seen any of our previous ones or researched yourselves, but it's that principle that supply chain is going to become very interesting in these years to come. It's already a very complex system. It's a very old infrastructure, arguably, albeit that over time and certainly maybe the last few years, it has become a bit more automated, a bit more less dependent on manual forecast, more dependent on that algorithmic data. I won't mention the supermarket name, but there was a couple that I visited over my time in my career, sort of a few years ago, went to the head office, and it was like NASA. Honestly, there was a huge room dedicated with like 30, 40 different screens on it. It told you every single price of every single commodity, whether it be food, cardboard, plastic, whatever it might be. So if a supplier came to them and was like, yeah, we're going to charge you this amount for you to buy our product and put on your shelves, they could easily, like within seconds, turn around and say, you're charging us too much. Yes, of course, companies want to make profit, but they could turn around and say, actually, your supply chain is suggesting, or the materials that you're using is suggesting that it should be this cost as a cost product price, and then obviously like whatever percentage on. So they could easily tell if someone's taking the mickey with profit margin making or just making too much money, and that's kind of like a really cool survival tactic. But it was equally very, very amazing to see that. And it's very much on that dependence of data, very sufficient data that's coming through on that real-time perspective. But what we can do now with blockchain and AI integration with all this on top of those kind of things that are already kind of in fruition, is having that processing ability, the speed of which transactions can be done. And we talk about that flow, right? We talk about that flow of like me, for example, taking something out of the fridge. It automatically tells the whole entire blockchain system around the world that I've taken something out of my fridge and it needs to be replaced. Or it might be in the near future. I've used examples many times, so forgive me if you've heard them before. But when we've got the chips inside us for monitoring our nutrition, our health, etc., and it says, Simon, you're going to have a heart attack in 2 weeks, you need to change your diet. Don't worry, we've ordered everything for you. It's coming by drone in 10 minutes. All of those things, those movements, those complications, those thoughts are transactions. And that's when chains become very important, not just from the transactions per second perspective, but also that fundamental factor of like the chain itself, the actual technology needs to work in that, not only in an API format and an interoperable format to work with other chains and other systems, other apps, other systems in terms of infrastructure that we're talking about here as one example, but also has to be like very lucrative in the way that it processes, validates, it has the transparency, it secures it in the block forever and ever as a permanent fixture and can't be edited and things like this. So even from a tracking perspective, if you're conscious about sustainability or where your food or produce is coming from, you can see that whole historic data just by scanning the product that you've got in your hand or that's on its way, and to determine actually, is this fair trade? Is the person that's created this rice or whatever, are they being paid fairly? And that will even be transparent at the beginning, let alone when it actually gets to you, to actually make sure there's a potentially a fairer world and a more faster and efficient world as well. Obviously, China are a hugely massive exporter of multiple manufacturing properties, materials, etc. And of course, Amazon use a lot of the Chinese factories over there. I've been to many of them over the years in multiple different sort of areas and districts of China. It's quite incredible to see it all working, a lot of the automation that's going on there. But again, that principle that yes, there's still some manual labor still going on there, but a lot of it now is so robotic. And you go, well, how does that work? How does it feed the system? How does it know what it needs to pick out or have delivered or send out based on supply and demand? This is where it all kicks in. So it's no surprise to me why Amazon is doing this. But that point I was making about sustainability, this ESG format is very, very important for companies in the years to come. It's kind of taking over that social responsibility tactic that I've seen many years ago. I incorporated loads of those about 10 years or so ago when I was first starting my marketing career. And the ESG format is the environmental, social governance and all this kind of stuff going on. But there's a topic going around the world right now with the relation of CBDCs and how companies could access or not access money or this, that, and the other, similar to what we're having conversations about in the public domain about programmability of money, is that actually companies are really having to adhere to this Agenda 30 program, the UN's directory of sustainability, diversification, social goals, economic goals, etc. And sustainability is a huge part of that. And that's one thing that blockchain can tick off the box. Don't listen to the FUD about Bitcoin and the cost and the power and this, that, and the other. It will be used for many years to come, maybe even hundreds or thousands of years or developments beyond that. That's always a tactic to manipulate markets and things. The point being is that these chains are hugely, hugely advanced. And that's why companies like Amazon will be taking this on board, and especially through their cloud system. Remember we did the Casper video a few months ago about the incorporation, not just with Casper, but technology of blockchain coming into that cloud infrastructure as well, because this is how it's kind of operating. It's the most sustainable way. Rather than having hard drives and this, that, and the other, you've got a multitude of systems that can share processing power, share data on a more significant level than we've ever done before. That's why it's important to understand this, that VeChain is one of those top projects out there that has been advancing this for years and years. It's not going anywhere. it's got a massive utility, it's got a massive use case, and that's just one prime example of it. And we talk here about the index of HQVAC. This is very much kind of like those companies you see out there that kind of give an audit, if you like, of a currency or a project. But this is great to see that it's being acknowledged and recognized as a top quality technology. The team behind it is fantastic. It's a very intellectual team. It's got a very experienced team behind it. And it's not going anywhere, guys, which is why I was a bit confused about. Maybe they're clickbait videos, I'm not sure. But I don't like doing those kind of things. I'm more interested in the technology. Has it got a use case? Has it got a utility? Can I invest in it? And what can I see in the future of this? I'm not just investing in it because there's loads of YouTube videos around there. I actually know about all these different industries that they're capable of inserting themselves within, and they have been doing and are continuing to do. And some great partnerships that they've got themselves, let alone what they're doing by themselves as well. And of course, we've got other recent news. I think this was literally a few days ago, 23rd of June, sorry. I always know that in America, of course, they have the day and the month the wrong way. And sometimes it confuses me. I'm like, since when did we have 23 months in the year? We're not on Saturn. But this particular interesting news was one of the developments, which will go onto the chart in a second. Of course, assets being added to the roadmap of Coinbase was VeChain and V4. Now, V4 is arguably a bit of a governance aspect, but it's also the fuel. It's the fuel of the whole network being operated and used. And actually, if you look at the chain stats here, for example, VeChain stats.com, there's loads of different ones you can use. But you can see the amount of VeThor that's constantly being used on a real-time basis. 21 seconds ago, 410. The big amounts. I mean, there's a lot of VeThor in circulation, of course. I think it might even say it here somewhere. Oh, there's the market cap. Unfortunately, I don't have the actual supply numbers for those at the moment. We can jump on coin market cap in a second, perhaps. But the point being is that there's another utility case here for using that kind of token aspect of it. And for those that don't know or are new to VeChain or starting to get interested in maybe investing in it soon, I don't think the APR or the APY is as good as it used to be. But if you are staking VeChain or using it in the earn platforms like on Binance or in KuCoin, for example, you do get VeThor for free. Obviously, it depends on how much you're putting in. Will increase the amount of VeThor you get as a reward. And that's going to be quite substantial. We saw something similar with Zilliqa's GZIL before. It had a massive run in the last bull run. I don't know whether it will do it again, but VeThor is something, if you think about how many transactions this could operate and how many things go through our logistical and supply chain mechanism around the world, it's going to be possibly huge. But not just that, guys. We just mentioned one simple service of this, the general supply chain tracking service that they got here in the VTool section. They call it VeChain Toolchain, by the way. There's a multitude of other areas as well. Hardware products, having scanning abilities to be on there. Is this product legitimate? Is this thing that we're picking up in our hands or buying or spending loads of money on actually legitimate? Where's it coming from? Where are the components coming from? And having that data algorithm connectivity potentially through 5G or AI to report those things back to manufacturers to improve things rather than manual feedback of us going, yeah, this is very nice, 5 stars, blah, blah, blah. It can actually report back and forth automatically, kind of like what Windows has been doing for many years with that auto sort of reporting system. But actually to have your hardware and stuff actually doing this for you, it's quite mad. And it's all these kind of things that can really put in place. And there's some other developments here. I'm not going to pick them all out, but API is obviously a big one. A lot of big talk around APIs. This is where essentially software or application are basically being able to talk to each other in a very secure, safe way. You could look at it, for example, like I use Coinly, and you use the API data from your exchanges to pull information across the Coinly that then calculates your tax information, etc., etc. But for API to work, obviously the two technologies or companies need to have really enhanced their security and that connectivity power for it to be able to talk to each other. It's more of a communication tactic. Smart contracts, we can go on all day long about this one. But again, this is very much a legal aspect of blockchain, the ability to synchronize and allocate documentation on blockchain, make it more secure, make it more verifiable. And the reason I'm not going into each detail into each one of these is because pretty much most chains do a lot of these other bits and pieces as well. However, I would say VeChain's big sort of projects and topics are not necessarily unique because there are other companies that do it. T-Food is another cool one that does it mainly in the food supply chain and stuff like that. There's a multitude of other ones, and if you look deeply, like Hedera and stuff, they have their own incorporations of this as well. XDC with trade finance, which does incorporate supply chain also. But these guys have a really big, powerful opportunity because they have been around. There's a lot of expertise within them, and they do have a massive ability to already start integrating with huge companies like we've just mentioned with Amazon and many, many more that are on there as well. But that ability now with AI opportunity, the algorithm data, the use of DLT, distributed ledger technology in here, we've got the ability as well of just this automated infrastructure coming together, which is why it's really interesting to me. And this is a really cool article I'll leave it in the description, just saying about VeChain could profit from this AI crypto algo integration, and it's very much that point, looking to the future and seeing that VeChain's foundation is massive. And I mean foundationally as in its infrastructure is massive as well as its namesake. And that there is utility, there is real use case. It is already being used. It's got massive certifications across the world, patents, etc., partnerships, lucrative partnerships. And it's not going anywhere. So, as I said, I was quite surprised to see some of the crazy videos out there. And that's for everyone to make their own mind up. You know, you might think some of the things I'm saying here are crazy, but as I said, I've worked in these industries, I have the experience and the knowledge, but I also see the application of VeChain and what they've been doing over the years. I've followed them for some time now. I can't believe how fast 3 years have gone. But it was roughly around this time that I was investing in them at the beginning, which is quite crazy. And there's many people out there that have been doing it even longer than I have with the VET in their portfolio. So they're just things to think about, guys, because you have to just not dominate your thought on one channel or one opinion. You have to conclude it yourselves with a multitude of information. But I'm a holder of VeChain. I very much enjoyed the previous bull run. I didn't take as much advantage as I should have done. I didn't have a crystal ball. I was still very much a bit of an amateur in regards to the trading understanding. Not this time around. I know it's going to have a good cycle around, maybe even adopting towards that dollar mark for this next bull cycle. We'll have to see. But on that topic, guys, hopefully that's a bit of food for thought for you guys to think about. But let's jump into the chart actually and just have a bit more of an analysis on this side of things. So for me, it has had a bit of an upward trend over the last week or so, which is great to see. That came off the back of Coinbase and a couple of other things, a bit of that intuition of what the Amazon kind of officiating of their partnership, if you like. But what still stands is what I drew in a long time ago. I can't remember the last VeChain video I did, but this was the area of importance to me. Why? Because historically, by the way, this is roughly around where I got in to VeChain. It was like, I can't remember, it was like 0.5% or something. So it's not too bad. It's not far off where it is now, to be honest. But my point being is that data-wise, we obviously saw the launch, it's come down. We had a bit of volatility around this area towards the end of 2020, and then boom, absolutely crazy. We went all the way up here to 27 cents. Now, if we look at the long-term fib retracement channels, yes, it does go beyond that, but I would anticipate potentially there's an opportunity for us to start diverting ourselves up to that 75-cent mark, at least as a minimum, and maybe towards that dollar. It really depends on the adoption, how many more people come in, more so this time around than the last bull cycle, all the variables that you can expect, right, in a rally. But my principal point here in these lower regions was an area of accumulation, an area of opportunity, certainly of interest that's still under that sort of 5-cent radar. 5 cents, by the way, is all the way up here. So it shows you the huge bracket in the long-term fib. You've got this red line here, 6.7 cents, all the way to the bottom where we are down here at the 00, whatever number that was. That was crazy long. But the point being is that because of the data points, we can see that there's a lot of area to really define itself as a support level, but also there's a few barriers kicking in here. You can see on the way down, it was resistance, but eventually we dragged it down because of the bear market, this trend. You can see the line, an invisible line almost that goes in that direction to suggest that actually we're in this opportunist area again, where we can see the barriers. So again, first of all here, we saw it slightly dip down, but it pulled itself like a magnet back up to this 1.5 cent mark. So we can argue that this is definitely a definitive area to have limit orders in, and I certainly do personally. Again, this is not financial advice, just what I've been doing and what has been working very well. I'm not buying because of this slight uptrend yet. It's still 64 on the RSI on the 14-day. However, if that does come down, where we saw some lower numbers back down towards that 45-40 mark, absolutely we'll be getting that back in, and that could be where we see the 1.8 again. The reason in most asset situations, I do say there's not a really huge difference between 0.5 cents, 1 cent, or in this instance 1.5 cents and 2 cents. But when you're accumulating big numbers, it does make a difference, and VeChain is one of the ones that I try and hold and accumulate as much as I can of. It's one of the higher quantity ones that I've always tried to get, just because of my belief in it and what I see in front of me. Who knows whether it works out? We don't know. But the point here is that there's good opportunities. But if you're one that's like, I'd rather be more strategic and get those proper low opportunities, yes, in the grand scheme of things, it is there right now for us to take all day long, every day, pretty much, as it is sitting under 5 cents still. But I always remember the conversations with my pals, and even to this day, when we were saying, especially when it shot up to that 30 odd cent mark, I can't believe you were getting it like 2 cents. And then everyone was like, I wish I did that. But now all the same people are not buying it, and it's sat at 2 cents again. And there is an argument to say that it could come down low, of course, because again, there's a lack of data at these points. You could suggest that we could hit these barriers again back at the low 1 cent area. And I do have limit orders, particularly just above this fib level here. It's not quite the 1 cent mark. It's not quite under it. It's like literally like 0.011, I think, something crazy like that, just to see if I can get that bite point. And there's quite a big stack there, but I'm kind of manually moving it around because it's a bit of a volatile, crazy couple of weeks. So it's not quite as easy as a long-term effort to kind of predict or see a bit of a trend. So keep an eye out for it, guys. But I circled these or squared this area off because I think this is a valuable area to obtain a good enough VeChain. So when we do have the bull run, you're going to see some good gains out of it, and as I said, even if it was the 5 cent mark, which is all the way up here, granted, you're going to get less VeChain, obviously, for your money at those prices, which is why I'm suggesting that this area is of great interest, and there's reasons behind it. So I'm really interested to know what you're doing with VeChain out there. If you're accumulating, waiting, are you day trading? What are you doing? And what is your prediction for VeChain in the next bull cycle as well? As I said in previous videos, I don't think we're going to see a big bull cycle until maybe 24, 25. But I do anticipate it to definitely get to these higher regions again, and at least to that 55, 75 mark. This big barrier is going to see a lot of volatility, in my opinion. Whether we break to the $1 in this cycle is another question, but I do definitely think it's possible. It's for sure possible. It's not out of reach, and it does look so far away. But when you have the influx, pretty much like we did last time, but quadrupling that because the amount of people, regulations in, more understanding, more knowledge, more ability to have access to exchanges, and you as a user to be able to buy things and understand things. That's why I think in not just the utility of the token and the project, but the ultimate psychology behind everyone coming in is what's going to take it to those higher regions, in my opinion. Performance wise, on the right hand side, we can see the week is up, which is great. The month hasn't been fantastic, but it's just edging itself up. I do anticipate that week to come down slightly, and that month to maybe orchestrate itself a bit more balanced as we get a bit more of a reduction potentially over the next week or so, as that big uptake, well, I wouldn't say big, it's not huge, but it's still a positive format here. In fact, we could probably very quickly, before we wrap this video up, just to put for entertainment perspective, 37%. That's very decent. That's very decent. But you can see it's starting to play around with this level here, and that's why I think we'll probably get a bit of stability. It might bounce up to the next one to test it, but certainly this area between here and here, that 1.5 cent mark is something to look out for again in the near future. Let's see how that plays out. But guys, thanks for watching this one. As I said, leave your comments below about your thoughts on VeChain. Really interested in whether they're good or bad. There is no right or wrong answer. I've just given you my outlay of why I believe in this project, why I'm a holder of it. That's about it, really. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next VeChain update video. Take care and bye-bye.